Hey, what's going on guys? This video is going to be going over the new Baro weapon, the Prisma Twin Gremlins. These are one of the better new weapons to come out, and even without taking advantage of their 5 ribbon disposition, you can still get very good damage out of them. Mostly because of their high base, crit, and status chance. They also handle pretty well, having a high fire rate and reload speed. Although they are projectile based, meaning that sometimes you're going to need lead shots to hit enemies. But having a base critical and status chance of 23% makes the Prisma Twin Gremlins very easy to mod for either status or crit. And honestly, it's not hard to mod for both, which gives you a lot of different ways to build them. The one real detriment to the build is that you're going to want a bunch of Forma to mod them out fully. Here I've invested 5 Forma, and that's mostly because I have the Prime mods, and if you don't have the Prime mods, you can get away with like 3 or 4. But honestly, I think this weapon's worth the investment. Especially if you're an MR11 and you're just kind of getting into endgame, the Prisma Twin Gremlins are a very effective weapon against high level content. But let's take a quick look at how I built mine. I have 3 main builds for my Gremlins. A Corrosive build, a Gas build, and a Slash build. Let's start out by looking at the Corrosive build. Here I've just gone for damage with Hornet Strike, crit damage with Prime Pistol Gambit and Prime Target Cracker, with Barrel Diffusion and Lethal Torrent for multi-shot. You may notice that I'm only using one of the dual stat status mods, and that's because I found I don't really need to have higher than the 70% status chance to make the status build effective. Especially because the Twin Gremlins have such a high base fire rate, which we're also augmenting with Lethal Torrent to put out about 14 bullets a second. Having that high of a fire rate means that we're going to proc Corrosive very often, very quickly. And upping that 72% status chance to 86 isn't going to make a huge impact on your overall damage. Because of this, we're able to run the single status mods like Pathogen rounds, which will increase our total corrosive damage. This has 2 main benefits. The first is that we're going to get more overall damage because we're getting 90% elemental damage from Pathogen rounds compared to the 60% we would get with Jolt, and because we now have higher corrosive damage, it gives us a better chance to proc that corrosive damage against enemies. So if you're not aware, the more of a damage type you have, the better chance you have to proc it. However, physical statuses like Impact, Puncture, and Slash are weighted 4 times the amount of the elemental statuses. Meaning that for this build, per status proc, we're going to have about a 37% to proc Corrosive, and a 29% chance to proc the second highest damage type, Puncture. Overall, it's not super important to know the exact chance to proc statuses on your weapons, but here I just wanted to give a quick explanation of how that worked in case people didn't know. So to test this, I just spawned a few level 80 Corrupted Bombards, and as you can see, I kill about 2 per clip. Corrupted Bombards have one of the highest base armors in the game, and the Corrosive build on the Twin Gremlins tears them apart. This is even more apparent if you put a punch through mod like Seeker on the Twin Gremlins. The extra punch through really makes a difference when all the enemies are lined up. However, for most gameplay, I don't really find this is very common, which is why I don't run it in my builds. But if you want the punch through, it can be very useful. The next build I want to look at is my Gas build. This build is going to look very, very similar to my last one. The only real exception here is that I'm using Primed Heated Charge, which will give me more base gas damage, causing my gas status to proc more often. If you are going to build a weapon for gas damage, you want to run as many toxin mods as you can, because the gas cloud's toxin damage is going to scale with your toxin mods, and it won't scale with heat mods. So the heat mods are just there to increase the base damage and the proc chance of gas, which is why I'm running the Pistol Pestilence dual status mod here instead of the heat mod. And to show this off, I just spawned some level 80 Corvus Crewmen, and as you can see, they basically just fall over dead. The gas version of the build definitely won't do as much damage against the armored enemies like the Bombards I just showed off, but against unarmored enemies like Corpus or the Infested, gas damage is going to clean up quite nicely. And as for the last build here, I'm running a Slash build with Slash damage and Viral. The element here doesn't have to be Viral, you can change it depending on what enemy you're fighting, but here I wanted to show off a different elemental combo. And you may notice for this build I'm using the 2 dual status mods, and that's because I don't really care about how high my elemental damage is going to be, especially because once I get 1 Viral proc, the enemy's already going to have half health, and getting additional procs is simply going to extend that duration. The most important thing for a Slash build is having a Slash mod like Maim in the weapon, and that's because at base, the Twin Gremlins have a higher chance to proc Puncture than they do Slash. So by having Maim, you're going to drastically increase the chance of proccing Slash damage. In fact, with this build, your chance of proccing Slash is going to be 51%, and remember that's because physical statuses are weighted more than elemental statuses are. So again, to show this off, let's take a look at the Corrupted Bombards. The Slash Viral combo is almost as effective as running the Corrosive damage. And if you wanted to, you could even swap out the Viral damage for the Corrosive, which against this level of enemy isn't too much of a difference, but against higher level enemies, the Corrosive damage will be more impactful. But I hope that at least shows you guys that there are multiple different effective ways to build the Prisma Twin Gremlins. Personally, I enjoy running either the Slash or the gas damage the most, but you can definitely play around with it and run whatever elements you like the best, or change it up for specific enemy types. The one thing I will say is that if you're running these as your main weapon, you're going to want a Carrier or a Carrier Prime. Because their ammo economy really isn't that great, and the carrier mod ammo case is going to make sure you never run out. Overall, I really like the Prisma Twin Gremlins, and they're definitely going to be the next weapon I buy a Riven for, which I think is really going to be worthwhile if you enjoy playing with them, because as well as they function without a Riven, with a Riven they're going to be amazing. Anyways, that's going to do it for me, guys. I hope you guys found the video helpful, and if you did, please leave a like. I'm planning to go over a couple of the other newly released weapons as well, but if there are other weapons you want me to cover like this, please leave a comment below. I hope you all have a good one, and I'll see you later.